Good morning. Who is ready for the cold weather? Listen, I believe 100% that it was God's will for us to move up here, but that does not mean I have to like the weather. I would be happy at 90 degrees every day of the year. Bring it on. So, a couple things that I want to say before I get started. The first is, I honestly do not believe that it is anybody in this room or within my voice, or the sound of my voice, probably watching, that actually took the cars off of the tree. I wanted to make sure you guys understood that I based on the information that I know, I believe it was probably some young kid somewhere. So I want you guys to know that because I'm not like looking at somebody to blame sitting in this sanctuary. I don't think it was anybody here. So I wanted to get that out. So other thing that was brought up was No Shave November. So this is not new. I just thought it would be fun to do it this year. So all the guys are welcome to participate, and we have some interesting prizes. One of them is actually going to be, you'll really enjoy this. I believe you will. Anyway, I'm not going to divulge the prizes because then it takes away some of the excitement behind it. So here's how it's going to go. Okay, the first Sunday of November, if you are going to participate, you need to have a baby face. Okay, which means no facial hair anywhere. What? None. So it's like you married a little baby. So the first Sunday of November. Okay, so Johnny is the one exception. He's getting married. We will give Johnny an exception. But if I understand correctly, we could get a 2 weeks head start and he'd still beat us. So he's the one exception, but everybody else, that first Sunday you come and then the first Sunday of December, you will come and we're gonna have everybody in the congregation is going to get to judge. So we'll have little judging or little ballots that you get to judge, and there's going to be 3 areas that you get to judge on. Okay, there's going to be the fullest beard, and I already can tell you that I am not going to win that one. I have been working on this thing for how long has it been, Jeanette? Like 3 months now, almost. I mean, and this is what it looks like. So there's going to be the skimpiest beard. I might win that one. And then there's going to be the most unusual looking beard. Okay, so those are going to be 3 categories, and it's just going to be fun. And we're going to have a prize for each one of those categories, and you guys get to judge. It's just something fun to do. This is sponsored by Pastor Steve, not the men's ministry, not the women's ministry. I'm going to go ahead and say this. If there is a woman who wants to be involved, so this past week, Jeanette and I had the opportunity to go down to Branson. Last minute thing, we just jetted down to Branson to kind of get away. I have had a lot on my mind and doing a lot with the basement and some stuff at personal life. There's just been a lot that I've been just focusing on over the past couple months. And I thought, you know what, I just need to get away for a few days. And so Jeanette and I decided that spur of the moment thing. Got got reservations, went down there. And on the way down there, I've shared this story with a couple of you. On the way down there, it's 5.5, 6 hours, depending on how you drive. If it only takes you 5 hours, you're sinning. Just want to throw that out there because I know what the speed limit is all the way down there. We're driving along, and I start hearing this, and I'm like going, okay, that sounds, I bet it's coming from one of the tires. It must be the road. So when it's 2 lanes heading one way, 2 lanes heading the other way, so I jet on over to the other lane, and thinking that would solve the noise issue. It didn't. I still heard that. I did not like that. Well, there was just something, there must have been something just, stuck in the tire. It didn't really dawn on me the severity of what might have happened until after I heard this. That doesn't sound good. What that was whatever that was on the tire making the ticking sound broke loose of the tire, hit the bottom of the car, and then I ran over it with my back tire. Car still drives fine. I'm just going to keep on going. So we drive a little bit further, and then it started really clicking as we drove a little bit further. What kind of things just naturally get stuck to your tire? Gum gets stuck on your tires. But gum does not produce a sound. A rock, and it does, you can't create a but when it actually comes out of your tire, it usually doesn't make that much racket. There's something else that makes that kind of sound, and that is a piece of wood that has a nail through it. And you know what does not stick to your tire by itself? Wood. But with a nail, it makes all kinds of noises. And then when it comes out of your tire, it makes even more noise. And then it dawned on me, you know what? I probably should check the tire pressure. Now, one of the things that I really like about technology is they make things simple. So our tires have stems on them that regulate the pressure, and so it communicates to the car, and the car tells you how much air pressure is in the tire. And so I look, and sure enough, it was a front passenger side tire. It had 25 pounds of pressure in it, when it should have somewhere between 35 and 40. So we pull over to the side of the road. I get out, and I'm looking. Obviously, there's a leak in the tire somewhere, and I'm looking, and I can't hear anything. I'm rubbing my hands on the tire, I can't feel anything. I know that if you take your car to the shop and you have air, they get a water, and they get water on the tire, and if it bubbles, you can tell air is coming out of there. So I go get a glass, I go get a cup, and I go inside the store, I get water, and I'm pouring water. So they make tires nowadays that are almost waterproof. So when you pour water on it, it's almost like there's a covering of wax on it. It just rolls right off. So you can't tell whether there's a hole. So I have Jeanette get in the driver's side, and she's backing up a little bit, and I'm pouring water. Nothing. I'm like, oh. We left Sunday after church. You know what is not open on Sundays? Tire shops. So I said, well, let me air up the tire and see how far we can get. Again, this is one of the great things about having a gauge that you can read inside your car. So I air up the tire. Now, the tire is only supposed to be maximum 40 pounds, but I know that I could put 45 in there and be safe. So I put 45 in there. And we drove, and I'm keeping my eye on the interior gauge to see how far, and we get 45 minutes before it gets down to 25 PSI. I said, this is okay, I could do this. Well, now we've got to find a gas station that has air right? The first gas station we stopped at, there was air. I filled it up. They didn't charge me anything. No sweat. The next gas station, we found one. The next gas station didn't have air. Then we went to another one that did have air. Here is how I know we are living in one of the most ridiculous places on earth. It cost $2. I only needed the air for like 20 seconds. $2. But I had to have it. Supply and demand. Let's do it. Up to 45, and we hop on the road again. The next time we had to stop, we were stopping to get something to eat, and we ate, and I realized, I said, there's got to be a Walmart around here somewhere. It's big enough. There's a Walmart around here somewhere. So we found a Walmart. We went to Walmart, and I think Jeanette asked if I was going to have the tire fixed at Walmart. I do not trust Walmart with fixing a tire. It was closed anyway, yes. So I went in, and I bought a little tiny air compressor. You plug it into the cigarette lighter, and you can air it up. I says, now I don't have to find a gas station. Now I can make it all the way down there, stopping every 45 minutes, but I'm going to make it. So I air up the tire, we hop in the car, we start driving down there again. 45 minutes later, I hop out, I air up the tire, we drive another 45 minutes, and we make it. Now, I am smart enough to know that if it loses 20 pounds or 15 pounds of pressure in 45 minutes, when I wake up in the morning, how much air is going to be in that tire? 0. So I'm going to play it smart. I am not going to park next to somebody else. I'm going to park next to a curb so that there's nobody next to me and I can access the tire. Best laid plans of mice and men. I have no idea what mice have to do with it. It's dark. We got to get everything unloaded. This trip has already taken longer than we planned. So I just pull in, and we hop out, and we get all the luggage inside. And I don't even concern myself with the tire at all. I know tomorrow morning it'll still be there for me to address. So we all go in, we get a good night's sleep. I get up in the morning, and I come outside, and to my surprise, not really, it's completely flat. So I go, no problem. Guess what? I have an air compressor in the car. All I got to do is pull it out. So I go over. Remember how I said that I parked next to the curb? Well, the tire was actually touching the curb, which is not a big deal, right? Unless the stem is all the way down to the ground. I could not stick my hand down there in between the curb and the tire to take the stupid tip of the stem off. Hey, Jeanette, because my hands are bigger than hers. Yeah, actually, she came down and she says, well, I could do that. But I even get she got the cap off, but we couldn't get the hose screwed on because it was only this far away from the curb. In that moment, as I'm sitting here looking, I asked the question that we all ask in situations we find ourselves in. Why? 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 We all ask that question. And sometimes it's nothing major. Sometimes it's because I did not pull another 1.5 feet forward that the stem is at the bottom. If I would have stopped 1.5 feet sooner or pulled forward another 1.5 feet, stem wouldn't have been a problem. Could have reached it. Now I have to find a way to jack the car up. And I have a jack in it. It wouldn't have been difficult. It wouldn't have been, but it was just like, really? After all of this, and now, why? We all have those questions. We all have that one question. Why? We want to know, why do things have to be so difficult? Some of you, it's a little more, the struggle's a little bit more real. Some of you, maybe you're dealing with difficult spouses. Some of you, maybe you're dealing with a physical ailment, whether it is some part of your body not working, want to work right, cancer. The question why becomes real. I'm sure that for those of you who don't know, Steve Bolt made his final entry into his permanent home. And so there's a lot of people probably questioning why. Why? Maybe there's a financial issue that arose, not to nothing you did. You did nothing wrong, and yet here you are in a financial situation that you're going to struggle to try and get out of. And the question comes up, why? Now, I can't really tell you that I have all of the answers, because I don't have all of the answers. But the Bible gives us some clues as to why we face some of the things we face. And I want to look at that. And we're going to be in Hebrews chapter 12. But before I get there, I want to talk about some things that we face, the whys, the questions we ask, that are not necessarily addressed in what we're going to be talking about. Okay? The first one is sometimes we face things because we are just stupid. Now, every time I use that word around Eli, he says, that's a bad word, you can't use that. But he's not here. Sometimes we are just stupid, and we do stupid things. Okay, I know I probably shouldn't be saying that word, because eventually I'm going to say it with Eli around, and then he's going to start saying it, and I'm going to get him in trouble. I'm going to make him, he's going to get in trouble for saying it, but then as I say it, and we just do things that we should not do. And as a result of doing those things, we are suffering. That happens. But and that's not really addressed in what we're going to be reading. But there are times where other people do things that directly affect us. Nothing we did. Somebody else did it. It directly affects us, and we ask why. I have been keeping a close eye on my retirement. I put money into my retirement every month, and it's not gaining as much as I think it should be. Is it something I did? No, I didn't do anything. And yet I'm suffering the consequences of a decision that other people have made. And I have to ask the question, why? And I think that question and a lot of the other questions that we have about the things that we go through are addressed in Hebrews chapter 12. So, we're going to start with verse 1, and we read through verse 13. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with perseverance or endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people. Then you won't become weary and give up. After all, you have not yet given your lives in your struggle against sin. Let's stop there for a minute. He's setting up what he's about to talk to. And in the first couple of verses, he's talking about sin and how it weighs us down. And I just recently talked this morning about how sometimes we go through things because of our own decisions that we make that are terrible decisions. And we should expect to face difficult times if we make dumb decisions. Should not come as, but God's gracious enough that sometimes we make dumb decisions and he saves us from the consequences of some of our dumb decisions. And he says Jesus, even though he did not sin, he took on the cross because other people did dumb things. Not just the people who put him there, although it talks about the people who put him there, but the people who caused him to go to the cross in the first place, which would be you and me and everybody else who's ever lived. And then he gets into another aspect of the things we face. And have you forgotten the encouraging words God spoke to you, verse 5, as his children? He said, "My children, don't make light of the Lord's discipline and don't give up when he corrects you. For the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes each one he accepts as his child. As you endure this divine discipline, remember that God is treating you as his own children. Who ever heard of a child who is never disciplined by his father?" Obviously, this author did not live in the 21st century. If God doesn't discipline you as he does all of his children, it means that you are illegitimate and are not really his children at all. Since we respected our earthly father who disciplined us, shouldn't we submit even more to the discipline of the Father of our spirits and live forever? For our earthly fathers disciplined us a few years, doing the best they know how, but God's discipline is always good for us, so that we might share in his holiness. No discipline is enjoyable while it is happening. It's painful. But afterwards, there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in its way. So take a new grip with your tired hands, and strengthen your weak knees. Mark out a straight path for your feet, so that those who are weak and lame will not fall but become strong. Discipline. Nobody likes discipline. Nobody likes discipline. And I'm not talking about necessarily the idea of you disciplining your body, per se. So an athlete will discipline their body. And in reality, I don't even think they enjoy it, because usually when you're disciplining your body, you're keeping yourself from things that are enjoyable. Okay? I like M&Ms. And I got 2 big, huge bags for Pastor Appreciation Month. Thank you very much. I know who gave them to me, and I thank you very much. My wife, probably not so much, because she knows that I start getting fat when I eat a lot of M&Ms. But I want to eat M&Ms all the time. But I don't. I discipline my body. Why? Because I don't want to end up being 250 pounds. Athletes the same way. They could sit around on the couch all day if they wanted to, but they wouldn't be very good athletes if that's all they did. No, they train their bodies, and the training is not easy, and it's not fun. I go out and I play golf. Playing golf is fun. You know what's not playing? Going to the driving range and hitting golf balls, 1,000 golf balls in a day, so that you become really good at hitting. I don't want to do that. I want to go to the golf course and suck. And be a bad player. Because if I wanted to be better, I would go to the driving range and practice a lot. which I don't do. So there's that kind of disciplining ourselves. This discipline is really what other people put on us. Specifically, talking about God's discipline of his people. And there are two reasons, really, that why God disciplines us. Or two ideas around God's discipline. And the first one is God's discipline is about his love for us. Rarely do people, especially young people, do they associate discipline with love. Listen, when I was younger and living with my parents, and before I got out of high school, when they disciplined me, I didn't say, "Oh, thank you so much. It shows me how much you love me when you discipline me." I didn't do that. My response was more like, "You're being ridiculous. What I did wasn't that bad. So why are you giving me such a harsh punishment?" We don't like discipline. And there's no sense of, "Oh, they're doing this because they love me." The look in Eli's face when I have to discipline him is not one of, "Oh, I thank you so much for disciplining me because it shows me how much you love me." That's not what he's thinking when I discipline him. What he's thinking is, "Why can't I do what I want?" Because it's not good for you. Why can't I eat ice cream every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Because then you will not eat healthy food and you'll grow up to be the size you don't really want to be, and you won't be healthy. And it very well could be that if that's all you eat, you might not make it to your 25th birthday. So we do things for other people because we love them. We discipline our children because we love them. The author even goes into that. And the passage here in verse 6, half of 5 and 6, "My children, don't make light of the Lord's discipline." That's from Psalms. The writers of the Bible understood discipline. And I'm pretty sure that every parent here or watching online knows the importance of discipline. You also understand the importance of the lack of discipline. So, if you don't discipline your children, you are unknowingly telling them that you don't love them. So, in the course of studying, I was reading an article, and it didn't give numbers, but it did a study on juvenile delinquents who were incarcerated. And one of the top responses to the question of how do you know your parents loved or didn't love you, one of the top responses was discipline and establishing rules within their home. Even kids, older kids, understand that just because you let them do whatever they want to do doesn't mean you love them. Sometimes it is just easier to let them do what they want to do. Every once in a while, Eli will pout, and it is, or he'll. Typically, it's because he wants something that we are not letting him have. And it'd be really easy if you go into the store and he wants something and you say no, and he starts throwing a fit and he starts pouting. It's really easy to say, "Okay, here you go. Just be quiet. Stop making a scene. We're going to finish shopping. You just be quiet." That'd be really easy. And sometimes we don't discipline because that's the easy route. But does that really help the kid? And now translate that to God. Oh yeah, but God, I really need this. I really want this. It could be very easy for God to just give it to you and say, okay, now stop asking me. But is it really good for us to have that? We think it is. The same way Eli would think that getting a car every time we go to the store is a good thing. But there's this aspect about discipline that promotes love. You know what the difference between discipline and punishment is? Discipline is motivated by love. Punishment is motivated by anger. When you punish your children and you're angry with them, you usually, because it's anger, you lash out at them. Maybe you don't lash out at them, but the motivation, and usually it involves some type of physical. Now, I am 100%, and now there's people who disagree with me, I am 100% believe that spanking your children is okay. I do that because, first of all, I was spanked as a kid, and so I just feel the need to allow it to happen to somebody else. The other is I have seen, and not all kids the same, but I have seen families of kids who grew up without being spanked. And more than half of them turned out to be kids I didn't want to hang out with. Now, there's more than one way to discipline your kid, and you have to determine what best works for your kid. Okay? Spanking does not work for every kid. We don't even need to spank Eli anymore. We just need to give him a look and tell him we're disappointed in him, and his heart breaks. My sister, on the other hand, you could beat her with a stick, and she would not get it. And trust me, my mom had tried several times. How many people know what a hickory switch is? Yeah. Learn how to discipline effectively. But if you are disciplining in anger, be sure that you are not establishing a punishment instead of discipline. Because punishment isn't for their future good behavior, it's for their present bad behavior. Discipline isn't for their present bad behavior, it's for their future good behavior. That's the difference. Here's another thing. If we love our children, we will discipline them. If we don't discipline our children, we don't really love them, and nobody else will either. Some of you don't get that. If you don't discipline your children, nobody's going to want to hang out with them. Why? Because they're going to be selfish for the most part. They're going to be probably arrogant. Now again, I'm making a generalized statement. Understand this. But there's a reason why God disciplines. And there's a reason why he wants us to discipline our children. God's discipline is about his love. It extends from love, not from anger. And it's easy, extremely easy, for us to punish for bad behavior right now instead of discipline for future behavior. God knows a lot more than we do. His punishment for sin is death, period. His discipline for our behavior is to make us better. And we're going to be looking at that in a minute. To make us better. We don't want, just like Eli and any other kid, we don't want to be disciplined. In fact, we will ask Maybe you've done this. Maybe your kids have done this to you, or maybe you've done this to God. We ask, please don't discipline me. Here's a statement that if you don't realize this, you need to write this down. To ask God to refrain from disciplining is to ask God to love us less. Wow. To ask God to refrain from disciplining us is to ask God to love us less. Have you ever thought of that? Oh, God, you know what? I don't want you to love me as much as you do. Okay? Only love me half as much as you really do. That way I only have to have half the discipline. Where do you think you would be if God's love was not perfect? Hell would be probably a good start. The fact that he disciplines you means that he loves you and he wants you to spend eternity with him. So God's discipline is about his love for us. But God's discipline is also about our future with him. His discipline in our lives is about our future with him. Now, we don't, unless God gives you specific insight into things, we don't really know, is what I'm going through right now discipline that God is doing in my life? Or is it me just having to live out the consequences of my decision? And sometimes those things overlap. Sometimes God uses the consequences of our sin as a discipline to help us move. So what is discipline going to bring to us? Discipline is not just about changing behavior. It's about changing an attitude. Because you can change a behavior without changing a heart, but you can never change a heart without it changing behavior. God is not into just changing our behavior. Because we could do all the right things, say all the right things, and still not love God with all of our heart. But if you love God with all of your heart, you will, in a process, start saying and doing the things that he wants you to say and do. You will eventually become the person, or you'll be working toward becoming the person that God wants you to do. But if it's just about changing behavior, so in the a while, not too long ago, actually, parents, when they got older, they relied on their children to take care of them, not a retirement. We don't think that way anymore because we all think, oh, I got to save for my retirement. Their retirement was the investment into their children, not a bank account. And so if you raised children who were not disciplined and made a bunch of poor decisions, when you got old and they made all these bad decisions, they couldn't take care of themselves, much less you. So there was a much deeper motive in raising the right kind of children. But nowadays, we can't even tell our children what gender they are. I mean, hey, you're not old enough to drink alcohol, but by all means, decide what gender you want to be. A little bit of a problem with that. So how is this God's discipline? How is it really about our future with him? Well, there's two things specifically that this passage that we read says. In verse 7, it says that we might share in his holiness. He disciplines us so that we can share in his holiness. So what does it mean to share in his holiness? Well, we can't by ourselves be holy. We are required to allow God to change us to be holy. And really what it is just, it's another way of saying that it is that we might become like him. Discipline, God's discipline in our lives for our future is so that we can become more like him, be partakers of his holiness. But it also says in verse 11 that we might have a peaceful harvest of right living. And peaceful harvest of right living just simply means we're going to make right choices. Right choices being godly choices. Discipline produces godly choices. The same way that when I discipline Eli or anybody else, the outcome of me disciplining them is so that they will make right choices the next time they have to make choices. And that's part of the discipline that God puts on us, is that he wants us to make future right choices. So when you look at this, God is saying, I love you. Because I love you, I am going to be doing this or allow you to go through this because I want you to learn. In fact, if you look at discipline, the word is also translated teach. So while discipline is not an incorrect understanding, but a wider understanding is God is doing this to teach us. To teach us. Why? Because he wants what's best for us. Why? Because he loves us. So now I want you to think for a minute of something you're going through, or something you have gone through. Or maybe this is something in the future that comes upon and you have that question, why? Why? Well, I'm going to be honest with you, chances are we'll never really know why. This side of heaven anyway. So what should our response be? What should our response? Sometimes God is gracious enough to show us the whys. But sometimes he isn't. And not knowing the whys can generate a lot of feelings in us. So remember the story I started with. Driving down, getting a tire, started leaking, and, getting there. And I'm sitting there, and I'm looking at this tire that I can't reach this. I can't put the inflator on the stem, and the question comes to my mind, why? Now I have a couple of options at this point. I have a couple of options at this point. I can sit here and complain about all of the things that have gone wrong over the last 24 hours, or the last 18 hours anyway. I can sit there, God, why did you allow this to happen? What would that accomplish? Is me complaining going to cause that car to just instantly move forward or back 1.5 feet so I can reach the stem? No. Is me complaining going to inflate the tire automatically? No. Has complaining really changed anybody's situation? Now, sometimes, if you complain to the right people and you complain enough, they'll get tired of hearing you and they'll solve your problem for you. But that rarely happens. Complaining never really produces the outcome that we want. Besides, nobody's going to want to be around you when you're complaining. I don't even want to be around myself when I start complaining. I could complain about it. You know what I decided to do? I decided to, okay, God, I got a jack in the car. I guess I'll just get the jack out. So I go to the back of the car, and it's one of those little bottle jacks, and you crank, 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 crank. Okay, let my arm rest a little bit. Crank, crank, and I think I have to rotate about 20 times for it to go up 1 millimeter. I mean, it's just unreal. So I get that, and again, the car's right up against the curb. So it's not like I can just slide it down underneath there. I'm having to tilt it sideways to fit it in between the car and the curb and turn it around, and it was just a pain in the butt. But I started thinking, God, okay, God, well, thank you. It was just a leak and I didn't have a flat tire completely, because then I would have had to put the spare on there, and then we would have only driven 40 miles an hour, because you will ruin your front end if you drive fast on one of those donuts. I was thankful that we weren't stranded on the side of the road somewhere. Sure, we have roadside assistance, but if you've ever had to call them, one time we did it and we had to wait like 3 hours, I think it was, for them to get there. It's like unreal. And then there's usually a limit as to how far they can tow you. And it's Sunday, so nobody's going to be open till the next morning. I was thanking God, well, thank you, God, that we made it here, and that I'm doing this at the resort and not on the side of the road. And then a guy pulls up, one of the guys that works at the resort, and he says, hey, I see you have a flat tire. Wow. God slapped me in the face and says, you say the same thing all the time. I says, yeah, it was a slow leak when I got here, and I woke up this morning. And he goes, you have the terrible luck. Look at where that stem is. I think, thanks, I didn't see that. He says, let me go get a floor jack for you. And so he takes off, comes back, and I slide it under the front of the car, and about 4 pumps of that jack, and the car's already up. And I put the compressor on there and turned it on. And one of the things that some people might not know is that when you get a flat tire and the rubber, the tire separates from the rim, I don't care how long you let that compressor run, it's not going to air up. And at first, I was about to say, just my luck. It's going to be separated. I'm going to have to get the spare out and have to put it on there, and it's going to be an extra hour's worth of work. And I caught myself again. Okay, God, even if I have to put the spare on, you know what? I'm on vacation. I could be somewhere else. Our response to God's discipline says more about our understanding of God than almost anything else. And I do believe that everything we face, God can use to teach us and to help us grow, whether it is our own making or somebody else's making. You know what? I didn't put that piece of wood out there with the nail in the tire. So why did I have to run over it? The thought occurred to me a little later. Actually, on the way back, as we were driving back home, I said a quick prayer. God, help me not run over any more nails on my way back. And I don't know if it was God who put this thought in my head or not, but I thought, it was better that I get this tire or this nail in the tire than somebody who doesn't know and has no way of fixing it. What if it was a single mother going somewhere, and it didn't just puncture her tire, but it blew her tire out? Well, God slaps me around all the time. So how we respond to the discipline says a lot about us. And there are three questions that I want to look at real quick on our response. The first question we need to ask is, what is God wanting to do in me through this discipline? What is God wanting to do in me? And that is really just, this question leads to a change in our attitude. What does God want to do in me? How does God want my attitude to change? Do I complain all the time? Maybe God's saying, "Oh, it's about time you stop complaining." Do I get angry quickly? God, how do you want me to change in my attitude through this discipline? Maybe the next question that we should ask ourselves is, what is God wanting to do through me in his discipline? Sometimes we are put in a situation and we are put there for God's discipline to change our action. Not our attitude, per se, but our action. Now, I know they go hand in hand, but sometimes it's what God wants to do through us. We are the instrument that God uses. So we ask, what is God wanting to do in me through his discipline? What does God want to do through me in his discipline? And the last question is, how can God get the glory in this? This leads to a change in our adoration. One of the things that on the way back, as I was praying, one of the things that I asked myself, and I had to think back about this, is at what point did I decide to give God the glory through this situation that I was facing? At what point, if at all? It took a while, but eventually I got to the place, even in the midst of this struggle, I got to a place where, all right, God, I'm just gonna give you praise. I mean, I didn't even bring up. We Monday morning, we woke up after I got the tire aired up. I knew I had 45 minutes to get it somewhere. We drove. And Eli and Jeanette and I were in the waiting room. They were fixing the tire, $25. I remember you could get it fixed for $6. $25, that's okay. We're on vacation. We're gonna get it done. And I hear the guy that was working on the tire come into the office and say, "I don't think we can fix this tire." I spent $200 on that tire last summer. You don't want to hear, "I don't think we can fix this tire." First, I complained to my wife. That was the first thing I did. And then I went outside. While Jeanette and Eli were in the waiting room, I went outside. I said, "Okay, God, whatever happens, I'm just going to praise you because I can't do anything else." Sure, I write a $200 check, $200. I'm just thankful that even if I had the $200 to buy a new tire with. Our response to the things that happen in our life says more about us and our relationship with God than we like to admit. So I know there are people in this room who are going through some things, and your responses are something like, "Well, it's not fair. Why has this happened to me? God, what am I going to do?" And God would say to you, "I love you, and I want you to learn." And so when you find yourself in that situation, I want you to ask these three questions. Throw those three questions back up there. What is God wanting to do in me through his discipline? What is God wanting to do through me in his discipline? And how can God get the glory in this? When you face the why question, the how come question, I want you to go back to those three questions and find out what God wants you to do. I asked Paul to come up, and he's gonna lead us in a song. And I want you, if you're dealing with anything at all, if you have a why question or a how come question, and you haven't received an answer from God, I want you to make your way up here. Find a place at this altar and call out to God. Not because I think he's necessarily going to give you the answer you're looking for. He might not even give you an answer right now. But what he will do is he will change you and help you answer those three questions. So as he leads, make your way to the altar and let God work in your life.
For I spoke of you sing. You've been so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You've been so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You've been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
I've had a lot of people who've, I've talked with and asked, where is God? I just don't feel God. Where did he go? Why am I so far away from God? I just don't understand. And my response is always the same. You feel far away from God?